Welcome back to the Yellowhammer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, CJ Duncan. We want to thank you for being on this journey with us. I must say, this weekend was one of the best SEC weekends that I feel like we've had in the last several years. I mean, regardless of who you root for, you just had to be pleased with the level of play. I mean, you've got veterans that are making plays, you've got 17-year-olds making plays, and most of these games kind of came down to the wire. From Kentucky to Ole Miss. In Ole Miss, you had Alabama and Georgia, Auburn and Oklahoma. All these games were great this weekend. But before we get into those games, I want to introduce our guest for this week. We are very fortunate to have an SEC great with us today. This guy's from Madison, Alabama, a record-setting Mr. Alabama Award winner at Madison Academy, Under Armour All-American, Gatorade Player of the Year. Also an all-state basketball player, dual sport guy, 2017 SEC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-SEC. He was a second-round draft pick in the NFL to the Detroit Lions. And now he's a director of player development at the University of North Alabama. And he's also a father. Kerryon Johnson, welcome
I'm
to the pod, my man. How's it going?
doing pretty good, man. Appreciate that intro.
Man, of course, man. You have a very extensive football background and you're still giving back, which I appreciate. Tell everybody what's going on now. You played football at the highest level and now you are taking that next step in your journey. What's going on?
Yeah, so over at North Alabama, like you said, director of player development and assistant running backs coach. So assistant running back coach, that takes care of his own, doing all those daily duties and stuff like that. But player personnel, player development stuff that I do, mainly my focus is to check up on the athletes pretty consistently. So we've got over 120 players on the team. So trying to keep up with all those guys, checking in daily. If they need resources around campus, if they now that we're further into the season and year, some of this stuff kind of goes away. But when guys first get here, like, hey, where do I go for this? Or hey, where's the doctor's office? Or hey, where is this? Or hey, I need campus security or issues like that. It's kind of things that I have to take on or help out with. Like I said, later in the year now, thankfully, it kind of takes care of its own. The more kids are on campus and around campus, but once we bring in a new recruiting class and new kids come in, and all that stuff will start right
Or
back.
right back over. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to gloss over that. I think it's so important that, this next generation has people like you, people that have played at the highest level. You've had ups, you've had downs, you've had this, you've had that, and you can't buy, that type of experience and wisdom at the store, you know what I mean, or online anywhere. It takes someone who's really been through it and that can really guide this next generation into being great athletes, but also developing them into being men, which is what it's all about to begin with. So,
Most definitely.
and I think that's great that you're doing that. So, we also briefly spoke about your illustrious high school career. I mean, I think you got every award that was possible your senior year, which is fantastic. And you had every offer, at least every big offer there was to get in the Southeast. What made you choose Auburn University?
Yeah, so a couple of things really. I knew kind of early on, like, so in all my years of playing football, my dad missed maybe one or two games. My mom missed, I think, two or three when she had knee surgery. So my parents loved to come to every game. Even when I got to the league and we were traveling all across the country to California, they still came to every game. So I wanted them to be able to come to every college game at that time. So I knew I wasn't going anywhere far. So
Mhm.
I kind of set my parameters, and it made life really easy for me. That's one thing kids nowadays, recruiting has become such a cluster, right? And social media is so huge for right or wrong reasons. But one thing that really helped me is I set my parameters like, look, I don't like cold weather. So going to the Northeast is out.
Yeah.
I don't like going far from home. So going anywhere past Texas is out. So a lot of my offers came from this, like you said, the Southeast bubble. And out of those offers, not everybody wanted me to play running back. So that narrowed that decision down even more. And thankfully, I kind of got lucky. I grew up a Florida State fan. And I really wanted to go to Florida State super badly, but they ended up getting another running back and didn't really want me anymore. But I got lucky because I ended up falling in love with Auburn anyway. So really made my decision really easy. The more I went down there, I had a great position coach and Coach Horton. Coach Malzahn always wanted me to play offense, always believed in my abilities to carry the ball and score the ball and do all those different things. And it just became clear, for most recruits, I don't know how it is nowadays. I didn't have NIL and stuff like that, but for most recruits back then, it was kind of a feeling. It's kind of like the girl you're going to marry, right? It's just
Right.
you get that feeling. You get on campus one day or get on campus two a couple of times. You just get that feeling like this is where I'm supposed to be, and that's the feeling I got.
Well, Kerryon, I want to I want to talk about that a little bit more because I feel like I had a very similar situation come out of high school, at least back then. If you were just a great athlete, you have schools and coaches saying, "Hey, I think he could play this position. I think he can play
Mhm.
this position." I know I got a few offers trying to get me to play corner, and I was a quarterback my whole life. And I'm like, what made you stick to your guns? Of course, you're a great athlete and played running back most of your career in high school. What made you say, hey, tell these other schools that are at a higher level that, hey, no, that's not what I want to do? Because sometimes I think kids may get influenced because it is a higher level and we assume that they probably know better. But what made you want to stick to your guns and continue at the running back position?
Yeah, again, like I said, this was before the NIL era, so but I guess it could be an outdated method of thinking. But for me, it was kind of I knew what I was meant to do. And I knew, look, I played corner, I played safety, I did all that stuff, but I knew tackling. And at that time, for context, like that's like Derrick Henry's coming out a year before
Yes.
me. Darius guys, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, all those dudes. I'm not tackling those dudes, bro. And all of them were going to SEC, and those were the people who wanted to play defense were SEC schools. And I'm like, I'm not trying to tackle these guys, bro. Like,
Yeah.
respectfully, I ain't scared of nobody, but I'm also a reasonable person.
Uh-huh.
It takes a different mentality to play each position on the football field. And I don't have that come out of the cap at safety, fly downhill. I don't have that mentality. Now,
Mhm.
what I did love to do is I love to play football. I love to run the ball. I love scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I knew if I didn't know what the future held for me at either position, but I knew at one position I would be happy no matter what, whether I made it big, whether I made it small, whether I had a very average career, whether it was up or down, I knew running a football is what made me happy. So that's just kind of what I settled on. And like I said, Malzahn believed the same way that I believed in myself, and Coach Horton did too. And so it really made my choice really easy. But I always knew, man, ever since I was a little kid and I scored my first touchdown,
Yeah.
they got called back for a holding.
Yeah.
This is what I love to do. So
Yeah. Now I can relate to that so much. It's funny how our stories are similar in that way. And to your point, I have a younger brother who's about 6 years younger than me, and
mm,
we knew in Pee Wee that he was going to be a safety or a corner at some point in his career. He just had a different mentality than I did.
mhm,
And so I think that's a really good point. So you go from Mr. Alabama in the state of Alabama, Gatorade Player of the Year, all these all-star games to a very crowded running back room in
mm,
Auburn. So,
yeah.
you go from the point where it's like, all right, you're the man, you're the featured guy to, hey, maybe I've got to share some time, share some carries, and even do some special teams.
Mhm.
What was going through your head as a freshman? Did you struggle with that at all, or was that something that you were just like, I'm just happy to be here. It'll happen when it happens. Like, what were you thinking in that moment?
Yeah, I struggled a little. I struggled a little bit, probably not as much as others have, because I mean I grew up in a coach's household. My dad was a coach. My mom is anybody who knows my mom knows that she don't play no games either,
Yeah.
and neither one of them really or tolerate excuses or anything like that. And my older brother was a successful athlete, older sister, a successful athlete. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of grew up different and in that respect. So hey, that was competition, and what are you going to do to beat out the competition? It was never, and the thing that I always carried with me, even into the NFL, where people think it's supposed to be some, dog eat dog world and you got to hate everybody and stuff. Like, no, it's always respect. I mean, Peyton Barber was one of the best humans I could have played with.
Hmm.
Barber had a rough upbringing, had a rough situations all throughout his to this day, and he showed up every day and worked.
Hmm.
And at my freshman year, he ended up being that lead guy because of that. And he was taking 20, 25 carries, and he was supposed to be 3 or 4 on the depth chart. And after 2 weeks, Rock Thomas got hurt, Javon got hurt, and he was the main guy. And so I'm sitting there looking like, look, I can make excuses and waste a year of my life, waste a year of football, or I can get on the field.
Hmm.
And that's the same message I preach to kids here at North Alabama is look, whether you're playing in the role you think you should be playing in or that you think you deserve or that you feel you should be the star player. Okay, well, you're not for
Hmm.
whatever reason. So you can pout and waste a year, which in football is a lot. Like you never know what's
Yeah.
going to happen year to year.
Right.
This isn't other sports where you can, I can bounce around and maybe do a little like football is football.
Hmm.
And in order to practice football, you got to practice football. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? So you're gonna get hit, and you're gonna have to go through practice and workouts regardless. Are you gonna waste all that time because you're pouting, or are you gonna take it on full steam? So I decided to try to take it on full steam, and I played here and there my freshman year. But I mean, I ended the year with I had a strained hamstring that I tore in fall camp, came back still strained, and a torn labrum. And I was 190 pounds trying to play running back in the
Yeah,
SEC.
in
Like that's
SEC.
not gonna like that's not
It's
gonna
not gonna
fly,
cut
right?
it. Yeah, yeah.
So really, look, no matter what I thought to myself then, like I wasn't ready for that.
Hmm.
Like, and it was obvious, and like I said, I had really good teammates and other guys in that room. And then my sophomore year stepped it up a little bit, and then junior year was just the the multitude and the years of work that paid off finally over that course.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was. It sounds like it was a blessing in disguise, really.
Oh yeah,
Because development is so important, which is why what you're doing now. We need more guys like yourself in those roles because in this portal era that we're dealing with, as soon as a kid gets yelled at the wrong way or he's not starting or not getting the right amount of touches,
ready to go.
he's ready to get up out of there. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And I try to warn people. I'm like, listen, if a guy's in the portal, he's in the portal for a reason, nine times out of ten, unless it's strictly money related.
yeah,
But there is something to development. There is something to resiliency. There is something to have to being loyal. You made a commitment and you should be loyal to that commitment. And I think that your career played out that way. I think it all paid off in the end, from what it looks like. So, speaking of your junior year, 2017, I tell people all the time, they're athletes just get in this zone where it just feels like everything's clicking all at the same time. It doesn't matter what you do. You just wake up that day and you're just on and you're just better than everybody else. Describe that zone that you were in 2017, where every time you touched the ball, everybody in the stands wanted to stand up and say he's going to hit his head on the goalpost.
yeah.
How did that feel?
Yeah, that feeling, honestly, that feeling came, I would say probably up to a year before.
Hmm.
Uh, so my sophomore year, like I was saying, freshman year was with it. Sophomore year, I was supposed to have a big year, and I started out good, and then I got a high ankle sprain. So that kind of derailed me. Petway took over, did really good for us, was balling out. And so that kind of, derailed me a little bit sophomore year. Got done with sophomore year, came going into my junior year in the spring, and another high ankle sprain, same ankle. And so I was really down then. Mentally, I was really down. I mean, that was my second straight year, fourth straight injury. Like, I'm like, I can't figure this out, man. I get hurt every time I touch the field. And I remember this day like it was yesterday. He probably doesn't remember this day, but and we were at we had back then we used to practice, do our spring game, and then we practiced a couple times after the spring game actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was just one of Malzahn's things.
Yeah.
So we went to a practice after the spring game, and I had a boot on my foot, and I was walking, and I was depressed and stuff, and or sad, I should probably say. And Coach Hand, our O line coach back then, Herb Hand, looked at me
He,
and said,
he
"What are you
he
so?"
coached me as well at Vanderbilt.
Okay, nice,
Yeah,
yeah. Because
yeah,
Coach Hand, you know how Coach Hand
yeah.
is. He
I know
don't
how you
take
get
no
down.
crap at all, right? So he looks at me, he's like, "What are you so sad for?" And I was like, man, I mean, I get hurt every time I get on the field. Like, it just seems like I can't ever play. And he said, look, if you go out on that field, because at this point in my mind, I'm trying to play not to get hurt, not even to be successful. I'm trying
Mhm.
to just make it through a practice, make it through a game. He said, if you step out on that field expecting to not get injured, you're going to get injured.
Mhm.
So every time you touch that ball, you need to feel as though you are the best person on the field. You have shown that before.
Mhm.
Got hurt, so what? Get up, rub it off, go through rehab. You get out there and you expect to score every time. And from that day on, I did a lot of off-season work, ankle rehab. Coach Russell, speaking of getting, Coach Russell got on my tail all the year before, and I finally decided to buy in and listen to him, so I don't have to get cussed out anymore. And we went out there, man, and I would do so from that point on. I was doing 2 ankle rehab sessions a week, extra on top of workouts. And then every Saturday, when everybody else is recovering from going out on Friday, every Saturday morning, I go out there in the morning and I be in the sand pit. Me and another guy, CJ, who's a strength coach at Missouri now, would be out there every Saturday morning. And so when I got to the season, I truly felt like nothing could stop me because I put in almost a year of work now for
Mhm.
this one game. And
Yeah.
started off that one game, the beginning of that season, actually straining my hamstring again. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
then, so it's like, dang, what did all that work not pay off? Which wasn't the case. We figured out the issue and everything, and fixed that, got it right, and from there on, it's just every single time, like you said, every single time I touched the ball, it wasn't no thoughts of injury, wasn't no thoughts of I can't do this. It was just get the job done,
Yeah.
and it paid off.
Yeah. Well, I remember turning on tape, I don't think we played y'all that year, but I remember turning on the tape, watching other teams and seeing you on there. I'm just splash play, splash play, splash play. So whatever Coach Hand told you, man,
Yeah,
it
and like I said,
definitely,
he probably I remember that conversation. It was spring practice in the end zone doing while the team was warming up. I remember it like it was yesterday, and he probably doesn't remember it, but he really made a huge impact, and that's the power of coaching, right? And he made that impact for me.
yeah, for sure. So you played at Auburn, and you had the special opportunity of playing in an Iron Bowl,
Hmm.
which a lot of people consider the best rivalry in sports, not just college football, but sports in general. And you actually had the opportunity to win an Iron Bowl. Take us through that week of preparation, getting ready to win an Iron Bowl, and actually going into the game and being a key factor in the win.
Yeah, we knew we were gonna win that game.
Yeah.
After beating Georgia and just the run we were on, we really should have been on a better run because I mean we didn't have any skilled players that year when we played Clemson. So we lost that game. And then we didn't have and then LSU, we were winning the whole game until like the fourth quarter. I don't think we scored the whole second half. So we knew what type of team we were going to be. And so we knew going into that game, but the experience, because that's the week you get out of school that week, right? Because that's the Thanksgiving week. So you get out of
Mhm.
school, we're pretty much the only ones on campus.
Right.
At the
Yeah.
time. Everybody else wants to go home. They just come back for the game. But I think Auburn had a rule back then where like you couldn't set up the tailgate tents until like Thursday afternoon or something like that. Well, ain't nobody in school, so I don't think them things was set up like Tuesday, Wednesday. It's white, and that's the most beautiful thing for me about Auburn, Alabama. A lot of things are great, but seeing the white tents get set up, and,
Yes.
and me and Deshaun Davis work together, so we live together, so we still get to have our old man throwbacks and things. But we both agree. I mean, to see the white tents get set up all across campus is one of the most awesome things experiences I could have. So they set them things up like Tuesday, Wednesday. So the buzz is already going crazy. So we know we're a good team. We know we can get these guys. We know at this point we know who Alabama is. Dominant, dominant. We don't care. Like
Yeah.
that's what this game is. We've had my freshman year we were terrible, and we only lost by 13, and they scored the last like a touchdown like 30
Right.
seconds left. Derrick
Yeah.
Henry running in. So like the Iron Bowl is always up for grabs, no matter what the records are. We
Yeah.
saw that last year with Auburn and Alabama. Like, no matter what the records are, the
Yeah.
Iron Bowl is up for grabs, and that's what makes it so awesome. So, building up to that game, man, we were just ready. We were ready to go out. Malzahn had us prepared, had us fired up. Ain't much coaching going on that week because you don't have to get the team fired up. You
Mhm.
don't got to scheme up. this and that. It's just us versus them. Who's gonna play better today and who's gonna be tougher. So it's awesome, man. It's an extreme experience I'll never forget.
Yeah. No, that's special. I can as a kid from Montgomery and going to a bunch of those games growing up, that white tent
Yeah.
situation, I can only imagine as a player, you're walking through campus and seeing that and saying, all right, this is gonna be a big one right here. So
They're
let's
all there for you guys. Like,
yeah,
they're there for themselves. They're there for you guys to go out and play. And then you
yeah.
get the warm-ups and the student sections already packed out for warm.
Pack. Yeah.
So it's just, man, you get an extreme sense of, man, like this is, I mean, you can't replace that feeling.
Oh yeah. Once in a lifetime. I mean, you even after you're done playing ball, that feeling you get in your gut right before running out that tunnel, there's nothing that's going to bring that back. So,
Yep.
you know, the kids today, they've got to just soak all that in because it really doesn't get better than that. But let's get into the Coach Freeze era quickly. It was a bit of a slow start last year, but normally with new coaches, you give them a year or two to kind of get their guys in, get their culture established, those type of things. And then, had a really good, in my opinion, a really good offseason as far as recruiting is concerned, had some really good receivers come in, did well in the portal as well. But that causes expectations, right? When you are that successful and you are able to get so many good players in at one time. But now we see after five straight home games, Auburn is 2-3, and
Mhm.
now 0-2 in conference. What are you seeing right now with this team? What's not clicking for this Hugh Freeze team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, now I haven't been able to watch every snap of every game because we play on Saturdays too and travel and all that stuff. But from what I've seen, they've got a lot of unlucky combinations.
Hmm.
So when now like, I've only been coaching for 2 years in college sports. So, but the things I noticed quickly from being a player to being a coach is you got a couple things you can't compound.
Hmm.
So if I don't have a superstar quarterback like they don't have,
Hmm.
and I'm not a Peyton Thorne fan. I'm not his biggest supporter. I think he is who he is, right? He
Hmm.
can make some plays. He doesn't make some plays. He is who he is. He's not Jalen Milroe. That doesn't make him the worst quarterback ever. He's just
Right.
not, right? So when
Hmm.
you have that, one thing you have to do as a team is make up for it, right? And what doesn't help, you can't compound not having a great quarterback and you're not great quarterback turning the ball over. So
Yeah.
those are two things you can't compound as a team. That's very hard to overcome at any level of football for any situation, right? So you can't compound that. You can't further compound that with not running your running back a lot. So if I don't have a great quarterback, I know they have great receivers. They do. They truly do have some talented receivers. Me coaching from the outside looking in, and it's a different conference, right? It's SEC, big boys up front and all that stuff. I'm gonna have to tell the receivers, hey, I'm sorry, but we got to run this ball, right?
Yeah, you got
So, and
to.
I'm going and you've got to force the defense to stop you and force you. Now it's frustrating, and I'm sure it's frustrating for him coming from his background and Ole Miss and everything he's done. But that's what you got to do, right, in this scenario, because obviously throwing the ball isn't working,
Yeah.
or comes with too many risks, right?
Yes.
So, and then my last thing for them that kills me, or the last two things, is their defense gives up a lot of big plays. I feel like,
Mhm.
again,
Yeah.
I don't get to watch every single play, but sometimes they stuff. Like
Yes.
they're an athletic defense. They fly around. I know they've got some injuries on the back end, and I know their corner got hurt, 2 weeks ago or something like that. So but every time I turn the TV on, it's like it's a stuff, or they'll stuff for a quarter, and then in one quarter they'll give up like four big plays.
Yes.
It's like last game, they were stuffing for what 3 quarters, and then they give up a 70-yard bomb, and
Hmm.
you can't expect the defense to hold out all game long for
Hmm.
sure, but you can't. You got to limit that as much as you can.
Hmm.
And then my last thing is they get dumb penalties.
Yes.
They get a lot of dumb penalties that can easily be avoided, that easily don't have to happen. So when you compound all those things, talent does not matter.
Yep.
It absolutely does not matter. If you compound all those things, you're going to get what you get. right now. You know, you're going to get the disappointing losses that they have to Cal. You're going to get the disappointing losses. So, and we deal with the same issues here at UNA. It's the same way across the
Yeah,
football landscape, man. You can't compound issues. If I got a quarterback that's not that great, he can't turn the ball over.
right.
If I have an offense that's not that great, I can't hurt my offense by penalties.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I have a running back that's really good, then I need to feed him until the cows come home and make somebody stop it. Then I can deal with that adjustment. But when you compound those issues,
It,
it's
it
gonna be tough.
it makes it very tough. I think you're exactly right. In my opinion, that's exactly what's going on. I said it last week, and I coached middle school in Homewood, Alabama, and
Mhm.
I tell my guys all the time too. I said, listen, football is 80% mental, and probably even more than that. And you have to control the controllables and pre-snap penalties and force balls that become tip balls and or overthrows that become interceptions. You just can't have them. And if you look at this past week's game against Oklahoma, in almost every category, Auburn dominated Oklahoma. Literally, whether it was passing, running, just overall yardage, even in time of possession. But like you said, untimely penalties and the pick six late is
Yeah.
what killed them in
Yeah,
the game.
that pick and that now again, I'm not the biggest Hugh Freeze fan. I'm not the worst, but that one was the one time. Again, I didn't get to watch the whole entire game. Now, other than him, probably should have ran Jaquez Hunter more.
Yes.
That was the one thing that I chalked up to. That was not good coaching at that point because
Yeah.
all of those things we just talked about,
Hmm.
and you set your quarterback up in a pretty big possession,
Yeah.
where you have the lead though, and then you go empty.
Hmm.
And so I was actually watching that play, and they came out and empty, and I saw that double mug. I said, "Oh shit, we need a timeout." Or
Quickly.
something like,
Yeah. Yeah.
do not let him. Now, I didn't think that that was going to happen,
Right.
and I think he came out and said that. I'm not sure. I don't pay attention that much, but that one right there is the one time where I was like, that was coaching, and he probably knows that. He's been around the block, and he's a smart guy. And like as a coach, you just can't set up a player in that position as much as you can
Hmm.
stop it.
Yeah.
You know, so that really, and it was really unfortunate. I felt bad for him because he was having a pretty good game,
I think
and
his best game as an Auburn Tiger was
and then
Saturday.
that's
And
that's what everybody's gonna remember though, right?
yeah.
So that's what everybody's gonna remember is that play more than, he gave us a chance to win, really more than
Mhm.
he lost us the game, So is the game of football is never one player's job to win. It's never on one play to lose, but that's what everybody's gonna remember. And I did feel bad for him.
Yeah, and also I hate it for guys like Keandre Lambert Smith and
Yep.
also Jarquez Hunter, who are guys that, when given the opportunity, are producing at such a high
Mhm.
level. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's all getting overshadowed by the losses or the media drama. What the coach is saying in the media, whatever it may be. Outside of Ryan Williams, you could argue that KLS is having the best year of any receiver in the
Mhm.
SEC right now,
Yeah.
but he's not going to be the talk of conversation because it's more about Auburn losing
Yep.
than his own production. So you played with Coach Gus Malzahn, and you all were very successful, in my opinion, throughout that time. I mean, I don't know that y'all had a season under 10 wins. I mean, you may have, but there was a lot of winning going on during that time. And he's a national championship coach. He was offense coordinator of the 2010 team, and he was one play away from winning one as a head coach as well. What was something that he gave y'all wisdom or just culturally that you think applied to winning and helped y'all with winning that this team could probably use right now? What's some advice you could give, even if it's just the locker room? What do they need to do that you learned from Gus Malzahn?
Yeah, I'm not in the locker room every day, but just with the landscape of college sports now, I think one thing that gets lost is and that Malzahn really focused on preaching to us is just how much the university has to mean to you or the school that you're playing for.
Mm.
It may not even be that. Now, I ended up falling in love with Auburn. Everybody I played with didn't just absolutely love being in Auburn, Alabama. It's not like it's Los Angeles or
Right.
Miami. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta like you gotta you sacrifice some things to go to Alabama in general, but definitely from some of these guys are coming from Miami, some of these guys are coming from Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Atlanta, all surrounding areas, right? Like it's not like it's the buzziest area ever, right?
Right.
So to get guys to buy in though is you got to have respect for the school
Mhm.
before when you got there and the school after you. So one thing he always used to, or a couple of things he always used to say, is he always used to say Auburn was great before we got here. Auburn's going to be great after we leave. And so to me, that made a big, especially me playing the running back position. I mean, I'm one of 35 running backs from Auburn that has dominated. You know what I'm saying? The list goes on and on. It will keep, and it's been going on since I left with Tank and Jarquez and Austin to be next, and then the young kid that they got recruited that's putting up 800 yards a game will probably be after that. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that really struck home. Is but you guys like that. I don't sense it from the teams since he's left. I definitely didn't feel that in the Harsin era. I don't feel that now from everybody on the team as I should. Again, I'm not in the locker room every day. I could be completely wrong, but there's got to be a sense of pride for the university. When I was there, we had guys who look, we didn't like being in the same state as Alabama where nobody thinks we play SEC football because they win a natty every year. We want to go be that team. Or now it's Alabama and Georgia, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? So we don't want to be that team. We don't want to play third fiddle, fourth fiddle to them and those two teams and LSU. Like, no, we want to be the top dogs. Like, and it takes work to get there. And I don't care how many 4 or 5 stars they bring in, how much NIL money they spend. That has nothing to do with you going out and whooping somebody's tail every play. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this is about the love of the game and the love of the university, and money doesn't buy you that. So it's hard to get that in today's landscape of college sports at any school because the transfer portal and because NIL and because the turnover and because I got to go get this player from here. And guys don't always come with a sense of I want to be here and make this program successful because of me. And it sounds selfish, but if everybody in the program has that mentality and you're going against that guy every day,
Yeah.
then the results pay off. And then another thing he used to say is make a positive impact today.
Mhm.
Make a positive impact on somebody's life today. And so you could do that by the simplest things. Being an ambassador of the team, being an ambassador of the university is cool, but at the end of the day, people remember you for you, right? So
Mhm.
like people will remember who you are based on how you treated others. And now I do think the team, as far as I know, the team does do that pretty well, being active in the community. And I know they do a lot of funny shows and stuff and interactions and things like that now. So, but to keep those two things the main focus, mainly the first thing I talked about is like you have to like this is not whatever other school for whatever. This is Auburn University. Like we got a standard to uphold. We've got real legends that have come through this program recently. As recent as 2010 and 2013 and other places like that, and Derek Brown and all those guys who are playing now still to this day. Like I want to uphold that legacy for those guys who came before me. So I think they got to get back to that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I couldn't have said it any better. I think that's exactly right. So as you know, I mean, as SEC players, you look at the schedule before the season, and you usually start off with a couple games here and there, but then you hit the gauntlet. You hit
Yeah.
the SEC gauntlet, and it's always like a 4 or 5 game stretch where it's just like tough game after tough game, and
Yeah.
guys are just trying to get through it, right? And not get through it in the sense of not putting your best out there, but you're just trying to stay healthy
Yeah,
because
but I
it's
say
just
not die in the process.
exactly not die in the process. Exactly. And so Auburn's gauntlet has started, right?
Yeah.
So they had Oklahoma this past weekend. They've got to go to Athens and play Georgia this weekend. Do you have any thoughts, any predictions on this game? Will the Tigers bounce back this weekend?
Yeah. Is Georgia right this weekend?
Yes, Georgia in
I
Athens.
don't know
Yeah.
about the bounce back this weekend, but but now I will. What I will say, yeah, I don't know about the bounce back this weekend, but what I will say is that the Georgia team is beatable, and not because they've been beaten. They are not what they used to be the
Hmm.
past couple. Their defense doesn't have the guys that they have had. The offense definitely does not have the guys that they have had. They're this is the lowest I can remember. Now, I think ETN is pretty good. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I think
Yeah.
their running back is pretty good, but I'm not sure I would put him on the level of some of the guys they've had come through the recently.
Hmm.
So hey, if you want to pop up and surprise them, this would be the year to do it. Because
Yeah.
if they lose 2 or 3 games this year, Kirby ain't going for it next year. Them boys, they
No,
gonna be
no.
right back on. You know what I'm saying? That's just the type
Yeah.
of guy he is. So, I'm not sure about the full bounce back this week, but you got to embrace this. Like that's why you came to the SEC.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to go to the NFL, where when you get to the NFL, you're going to be playing against 80%, or not, probably not 80%, 50, 60% SEC players. So all these
Right.
guys you're playing against going to be the same guys you see next year at some level, right? Or at the next level. So you should enjoy that. I hated playing against teams that weren't good because
Yeah.
mentally, I didn't go out there and I didn't run as hard. Or I didn't and you end up having to play 3 quarters with a team you never should have been
Mhm.
struggling with because you didn't go out ready. But I play a good team and it's exciting. I look forward to learning how they do things and I look forward to going against the best. So the gauntlet has started, but honestly, with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, it's going to be every year. It's going to be the gauntlet the whole year.
The
So
whole year. Yeah.
yeah, like you got to embrace it,
Yeah.
and you got to embrace it from week one and fall camp on because ultimately it's making you a better player.
Yeah. And like you said, you got to get up for games like this. I mean,
Yeah,
I think I saw somewhere where Georgia and Auburn's the longest or the is it the longest rivalry in the SEC's
the
history or
Deep
something?
South's oldest rivalry. Yep.
Yeah, oldest rivalry. So you got to get up for games like this. You come to the SEC to play against Georgia, play against Alabama, to play now against Texas and Oklahoma. So yeah, no, it's going to be a tough task, a tall task, but like you mentioned earlier in this conversation, you're still Auburn. You know what I mean? You are supposed to be talked about in those same conversations. And so to say that Auburn's an underdog is probably an understatement for this year, but they should never feel as if they are underdogs. They have the talent to compete with anybody in the country. So man, Kerryon, I appreciate you so much for being here today, man. This has been awesome. And know that you can come back on our platform at any point, anytime, if you just want to talk ball. So we loved having you. And just so you know, for all of our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube page. Follow us on all social platforms. That's where you get the latest sports content. And thank you all for tuning in again. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate it.
You man. Yep.